guys, welcome to the Love of Books, Movies, and Happiness. And today we're going to be reviewing a trilogy, Nora Roberts Key trilogy. Now, if you're a fan of contemporary romance, most likely you've read at least some of Nora Roberts' romance books at the very least. Say though you're bored, we'll say, with just regular contemporary romance, or you're just wanting to spread out a little bit and experiment, and you're kind of trying to dip your toes into the fantasy realm, but you're not quite sure if you're ready to go for full-on new world, hard to pronounce names, all of the stuff that comes with a normal, immersive fantasy realm. Instead, what you want to start with is your normal contemporary romance with just a little bit of fantasy that comes into the real world. Well, I've got the perfect trilogy for you to start with. Just happens to be Nora Roberts, and as I've already said, is the Key trilogy. This is set in Western Virginia, in a smaller, touristy kind of town. It's set kind of in the foothills of the mountains of West Virginia, where you have three women, completely separate identities. They may see each other in town, but they're not best friends to start with. And they're just living their lives. When they find out that they're actually a part of a legend that one or two may have heard of, they just didn't know that it was A, real, or B, that they were going to have any part of it. And they also have no idea of just how much their lives are going to change from being a part of it. This is a very action-packed, very fun and entertaining read with a good amount of fantasy wrapped around the mortal realm. You have your current setting that you're used to, and of course you have your required bad guy. Only he's not a, come out of nowhere and kill you, kidnap you sort of guy. He's more of the bad guy in the sense of he tries to convince you that your self-doubts are true. He just tries to do it in a way that makes it feel like he's right and you're wrong. And when that doesn't work, then he resorts to a little bit more violence as he goes. If this is something that sounds interesting to you, then keep listening, guys, or keep watching as I do my review overall of the trilogy itself. And if you like what you hear and you want to check out the individual reviews of the three books, I'll leave a link in the description that takes you to my written reviews of each book on my Facebook page, where I've done a very thorough review of each one as well as my overall opinion of it. And of course, if you like what you're hearing, remember to subscribe, like, even hit that notification bell for the next review, and let me know what you think. Also, if you have a book you want reviewed and you haven't seen anyone do it yet, or you'd like my take on it, leave a comment or send me a message. I'm more than happy to review a new book. You just have to reach out and let me know. Alright guys, stay tuned and enjoy the rest of the review of Nora Roberts Key series. So this series starts with book 1, which is The Key of Light. And I do apologize, my library copy is very damaged. There we go, The Key of Light. The first book is, once I get away from the little excerpt, 334 pages. Not a super long read, at least not to me. Some of you may consider that on the longer side, but it's not horrible, it's manageable. And as all beginnings of a trilogy do, the first book is supposed to introduce everyone, give you a feel for what's going to happen, and keep you ready for the rest of the series, pretty much. Then, after book 1, we have the Key of Knowledge. And this one is, once I get past the little excerpts from this one, slightly shorter, as this is 327 pages of actual story. And this one, of course, continues the trilogy, kind of brings some of the action front and center before getting you excited for the third and final book, which is Key of Valor. And this one is, after all the excerpts, 332 pages. So overall, none of the books are overly long. They're each a book that you could reasonably finish depending on how fast you read, how much time you have, any distractions, that kind of thing. On average, most people could probably finish each of these in a month. Some of us can do it faster. Some could take longer. It could take you several months to read just one of those. It just depends entirely on your speed and how you prefer to read. If you're one of those that reads multiple books at once, kudos to you if you do that, although I find that strange. But if you do that, this could take you even longer because then you're bouncing between books. But it's not a super long book in any of them. It is a well-written series that does a very good job of introducing the world and then keeping you in that world without overwhelming you either. So the setting of the book, as I said, is West Virginia. And we're introduced to the storyline of the Daughters of Glass, which is, there's a Fae realm, and there's the human realm, and there's like a curtain almost between the two worlds. And it is common in the Fae world, once they reach a certain age, to step into the mortal world and do a tour before going back and deciding where they want to live. If they choose mortal, then they choose to give up their abilities and their long life, and they live as a complete mortal human being. Well, they have royalty. They have a king. He did his tour of the world and ended up falling in love. But he didn't want to give up either world. He didn't want to give up his love, and he didn't want to give up the Fae world. So, despite many in his world having an issue with it, he made her an offer that she accepted and brought her through the veil and into their world. When they had children, 3 daughters, well, those were now demi-goddesses, half human, half Fae. Not everyone was happy with the birth of the daughters, and there were many that weren't too sure at the idea of having the 3 girls eventually take charge of kingdom when their time came. To protect the 3 girls, the king had assigned 2 guardians, Guardian and the Watcher. Well, the Guardian and the Watcher fell in love with each other. This is where Pitt and Rowena come into play. they're so busy spending the summer falling in love and attraction and stepping back a bit to hide in the corners to make out and that they're not watching the shadows as they should be. Well, there's an evil sorcerer who goes by the name of Kane, who is kind of leading the charge against the girls. And he finally gains enough power and attacks. Only he doesn't just kill the girls. Instead, he rips out their souls and traps their souls in a box. And then their bodies are trapped in a glass coffin. Thus, the Daughters of Glass. Well, it comes to pass that the only way to rescue the girls, because there is a way around his curse, is simply going to take quite a bit of effort and some other reasons before it can be done. But to rescue the girls and put their souls back in their bodies, Pitt and Rowena are banished to the mortal realm until they find the three who can find the keys to unlock their souls, allowing them to go back to their bodies, which will then set the girls free. Until that time, Pitt and Rowena are trapped in the mortal realm. And of course, centuries go by. And up until now, anyone who's tried has not succeeded. Which brings us to our modern day times. Which is where we meet in the very first book of Key of Light, is where we meet Mallory, Dana, and Zoe. All three, they don't really know each other even though they live in the same town. It's more that, while they live in the same town, they may have passed each other, nodded at each other, that kind of thing. But they're not like super strong friends. At least not yet. But all three get invited to a night gathering at the local house that's known as Warrior's Peak. A gorgeous stone house that's almost like a castle, or like a keep of a castle, a small inner keep or some such thing. But a really cool house that everyone in town knows. The owners aren't really well known that well, which are Pitt and Rowena. But each girl finds herself invited to dinner there. And for various of reasons, for Mallory, it's because her job is on the line. Same with Zoe and Dana. She goes out of curiosity more than anything. I mean, her job is also on the line, but it's more curiosity than anything. So they end up going where they find out after dinner, they're told this legend and explained that they're the next ones chosen. If they accept the challenge and agree to look for the keys, they'll be given a set of clues. Depending on each individual person gets their own clue, and they'll have until the next full moon to find their key. In return for this, as a thank you for the time and effort they put into it, they'll be given a fairly large amount of money. If they fail, they lose 1 year of their life. And it's not that they die, it's just that 1 year of their life, they don't get to say which, they won't even know it's happened, but 1 year will get taken from them. Mallory is a manager of the local arts gallery. Dana is the local librarian, or one of the local librarians. And Zoe, she's a single mom working as a hairdresser at the local hair salon. They could all use the money, but they're not quite sure they want to do this, honestly. You know, it's a big risk for them. Zoe has to think of her son. Mallory's not sure how much she believes, and Dana is also on the suspicious side of everything. After a little bit of thought and talking it out, and seeing 3 painted portraits of girls that are supposed to be trapped, they realize that, oddly enough, they look like the girls in the portrait. Different clothes, but Mallory sees her face in one, Dana sees her face in the other, and Zoe is quite shocked to see her face in the third one. In the end, the 3 agree to try. They need the money, and seeing their faces in the portraits just unnerved them enough that, yeah, they'll do it. So, of course, once they draw names, Mallory draws her name first and gets her clues. The others are allowed to help her if they choose, but she has to be the one to find the key. So then her clues end up all being related to art, which makes sense. She is, after all, the manager of an art gallery and secretly wishes that she had the talent to be an artist. And if she answers those questions, she should be able to find the key. Simple enough. Then book 1, we follow Mallory, mainly. We meet the others and we kind of follow them because they end up jumping in to help. But Key of Light is essentially Mallory's story. And of course, with Mallory, we also get to meet Dana's older half-brother, Flynn, who runs the local newspaper. He is walking his dog when his dog quite literally runs into Mallory and knocks her down. Poor Flynn is thunderstruck by Mallory and wants her number, but she's a little too busy to deal with him right now. She's got this key to find and she's trying to figure out what to do with her life. Her job she just got fired from, so she's understandably a little distracted from romance. Upon going over to Dana's place, she finds out that Flynn is Dana's older brother, who ends up deciding to help out because he thinks that it's all one big scam of some sort, and he wants to write the story and get info on it. We then follow throughout Key of Light as Mallory tries to answer the clues, deal with Flynn showing up repeatedly, and forge friendships with the 2 girls. Then, somewhere in Key of Light, Zoe comes up with an idea because all 3 of them have now lost their jobs. Mallory through her art job because the art owner remarried and the new wife doesn't like Mallory. Dana because the head librarian didn't like that Dana was more liked by the patrons. And Zoe because the hairdresser there didn't like that the people preferred Zoe over anyone else. But Zoe gets an idea. With this newfound money they have, why not buy a house and turn it into 3 sets of shops? An art gallery, a bookstore, and a hair salon and spa. After much debate, the 3 decide why not. So then we add that into the mix. It's a very packed, semi-short story that has quite a bit going on within it. You've got the mystery of the key, you've got the romance budding between her and Flynn, and then you've got them trying to slowly create their own business, all while Kane is working his magic and trying to make Mallory doubt and distract her from the key. It's a very action-packed first book, and it does an excellent job of doing all of this in a way that makes perfect sense as you're reading. Of course, after Key of Light, we then move into Key of Knowledge, which once again takes us back up to Warrior's Peak. This time, though, along with the 3 girls, you now have Flynn, the dog Mo, and then two others that appeared in book 1, which are Flynn's friends, Jordan, who's a best-selling author in New York, and Bradley, who's the local home improvement store heir, apparently. It's like a big chain for them, and one of the better off families in town, who comes back good to take over the local store and ends up getting involved as well. So in book 2, all of them, including Zoe's son, are up at Warrior's Peak for dinner and another drawing of names to see who's going to be next, which is when we find out that next up is Dana. And what I enjoy is in every single book, each one gets the spotlight. The others don't get ignored, not by any means. Mallory and Flynn are still around for Dana's story. Zoe is still in the background. But Dana's story is still front and center. So you still get her story and understand what's happening with her while still seeing the others in glimpses, which is kind of nice, because then you can see Mallory and Flynn's relationship continuing to build, and you can start to get an idea of what kind of relationship is going to be building in Zoe's story, Key of Valor. For Dana, we get more of a background. We find out that her and Jordan used to have a history before he left and ended up breaking her heart, which means that she's having trouble trusting him now. And even though he's back and he's discovered he still has a thing for her, she has to solve her riddles, continue to build on her business and get it ready to go, and deal with him. And Kane has taken a new approach compared to how he did with the very action-packed ending of book 1. It is another action-packed. It's not my favorite of the 3 by any means, but it is still a very good one and a good continuing flow to the trilogy. Which then leads us into my favorite of the 3 books, Key of Valor, Zoe's story. By this point, Dana and Jordan have mostly figured out their thing. Mallory and Flynn are happy, and Zoe is super stressed. This single mother who has trouble trusting herself sometimes and has low self-esteem has watched her 2 new friends fight and succeed in finding the key, but also deal with Kane the sorcerer, and her biggest fear is that he will go after her son in some way. On top of it, we have Bradley. In Zoe's mind, she has no chance with him because he's a little bit more well off than she is, and for her, social standing is a very big factor. He could care less, but it's something that she has to work around. Well, Kane is a very crafty sorcerer in that he tailors his approach to each individual person. With Mallory, he was a lot more on target with her, where he really went after her and he challenged her, and then with Dana, he went after her more intellectually and what she feared or wanted the most, and used that to twist her dreams. With Zoe, he plays on her self-doubt, proving that he's not a one-dimensional bad guy, and he's a very thorough evil sorcerer who's quite twisty himself. Zoe's book isn't so much the going up against Kane part of it, although it's there. It's more battling herself, facing her past and her issues with her family in order to succeed for the future. And only by answering her questions and resolving her issues with her past and kind of getting the chip off her shoulder and finding her own bravery will she be able to find the key. It is an excellent conclusion to the trilogy and manages to do a wonderful job of not only concluding the story itself and giving us an answer to whether or not they all three succeed, but does not leave us hanging either about their business. It gives us a bit of a glimpse into the future for them. And when it comes to an end, it just feels like a very happy, perfect spot to end. I will say that each book doesn't have much of a cliffhanger. The way each one is written, the cliffhanger doesn't really exist. Like, it's done in a way where you know they're going back up to the Warrior's Peak. So you're not left on, like, except maybe after the first book when you're waiting to see who's next, but you're not left, like, waiting impatiently to see what's going to happen next. It just comes to a nice, smooth stopping point before picking back up. Overall, I give the series a 4.8 star rating for a good flow, a very good story, well written, and super sweet. There are times after the very first book when you can already kind of see where it's going, where it kind of gets a little more, not really staid or anything, just you can already see where the relationships are heading and who's going to hook up with who. That's the one thing where I'm like, I would have liked a little bit of an unexpected plot on that one, you know. But at the same time, I get it. These books do kind of have to follow a certain pattern, otherwise as readers we're annoyed when it doesn't. So I enjoy the series immensely. My personal favorite is Zoe's story, but I like all three altogether. If you're looking for a story that combines adventure, romance, and fantasy in a modern day setting, well, this is the one to pick. Remember, guys, if you enjoyed this review, feel free to check out my other reviews. Like, subscribe, and hit the bell. And feel free to check me out on Facebook as well, where I definitely post some of my written reviews. And if you guys want me to do a video review of each individual book, let me know. I'll go ahead and do that. Got no issue with that. Till next time, guys, keep reading.